So, I'm a Sony FX3 owner now, and I have to say I'm very pleased with my purchase. A few months ago, I decided to go back into photography. However, I realized that there's a lot of different cameras on the market, so I did some research. And this video should be sponsored by ChatGPT because the amount of hours I logged on ChatGPT was unheard of. An unruly amount of hours. I also used YouTube as a guide to figure out what camera I wanted to get next, but with all the research, I landed on the Sony FX3. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I had a bunch of cameras in my sight. After doing weeks upon weeks upon weeks upon weeks of research, I narrowed it down to 4: the Nikon Z8, the Nikon ZR, the Canon C70, and the Sony FX3. Now, I'm not here to tell you which camera to buy. Please pick the camera based on what your needs are. And I know that sounds hella cliche, but it's the truth. You gotta pick these cameras based on your needs. When I decided to get back into the photography game, I didn't know too much about the cinema line. I just thought all cameras was hybrids. Respectfully. And for those of you who don't know what a hybrid camera is, it's cameras that do photography and videography. Whereas the cinema line focuses solely on videography. And when I tell y'all that was a rude awakening because I wanted a camera that was a pro at taking photography and videography. However, when you get a hybrid camera, you're gonna sacrifice in some shape or form. Which leads me to the first camera I was about to purchase, the Nikon Z8. When I tell you I was super close to buying this camera, like I was sold on everything about the camera. If I wanted to do photography, it was there. If I wanted to do videography, it was there as well. But one thing on this camera turned me completely off to buying it. The LED screen did not fully rotate, it only tilted. Here we are in the 2020s and you mean to tell me your LED screen does not fully rotate, it only tilts?
Come on now, dawg.
What could I do with that as a vlogger, as a skit maker? I couldn't do too much with that. And that alone made me not purchase that camera. People need to take into consideration the ergonomics of a camera when they decide to buy one. Cause small things like that makes a big deal. And I know some of y'all like, man, that is a small thing. No, that is a big deal. Especially if you're gonna use the camera for what I be using it for. And that was the first hybrid camera on my list, but after that, I had to refocus and reanalyze what I really needed. I had to brainstorm on what I truly wanted out of a camera. Yes, I wanted some photography capabilities. However, what I needed the camera for was mostly videography. I knew that I would use this camera more so for my filming versus my photography, so I decided, hey, let's lean more into the cinema lines. Which leads me to the next camera on my list, the Nikon ZR. And when I say this camera is beautiful and it's $2,200, save your money. $2,200 for a cinema line camera, that is a big savings. Especially when all the mid-tier cinema line cameras are around $4,000 to $5,000. And I was sold at that price point. However, I had to do some more research to make sure that, hey, this is the camera that I need. It had that fully rotating, tilting LED screen. I think that's like the biggest LED screen on a camera at this point. It also recorded in Red RAW. But the thing about Red RAW is it takes up so much file size. I don't know if I would have put that on my computer and let my computer get computer cancer. I'm not really down with killing my MacBook because I use it for so many different things. I don't want to kill it by putting this huge file on it trying to edit. All that to edit down a file the size of Texas? Absolutely not. So even though it was $2,200, I'm sure it was a Black Friday sale that probably brought it down even more. I had to pass on the Nikon ZR. The next camera on my list was the Canon C70. And man, this was a beast of a camera. Between the C70 and the FX3, their pros and cons are about the same. One camera does things better than the other and vice versa, so you really couldn't go wrong with either camera. However, ergonomics makes a big deal when you're making a big purchase. These cameras are thousands of dollars. If I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on anything, it better be to my liking. The C70's LED screen was so flimsy. When I actually went to a store to just play with the camera a little bit, that LED screen gave me the heebie-jeebies. It felt so poorly done, and I'm like, yo, why am I paying $3,500 for a camera that's poorly put together? And I'm not saying that Canon hasn't fixed this issue, but that alone scared me away from the Canon C70. But with that being said, the Sony FX3 was super expensive. We're talking about a camera in the Sony FX3 that's around $39.99.99. That's the Black Friday sale versus the C70, which was $3,500 flat. Without the Black Friday discount, the C70 was around $5,200 and the Sony FX3 was around $4,200. So for the C70 to be $3,500, that's a $1,700 saving. And I love savings. Like I said, when you make these purchases, all these things matter. So with that being said, and the Sony being $39.99.99, I went on to bestbuy.com and tried to purchase the C70. But when I went on there to make the purchase, it said that the camera was sold out. And I thought that was very unique that it was sold out, because in the grand scheme of things, it worked out perfectly. All these things should be taken into consideration when you make your purchase. Does it feel right in your gut? Are there discounts? Is the ergonomics up to par? Are there foreseen circumstances that can stop you from getting this product? All those things played a part in me choosing the camera that I have right here in my lap. So like I was saying, I went on to bestbuy.com and the camera was sold out. Amazon also had the camera for the same amount of money, but something told me to hold on just one moment, wait until tomorrow to make the purchase. I don't know what it is about me, but I'm a late night buyer. I always buy things late night, like at 1 in the morning. So something told me to sleep on it. And the next day, one of my loved ones hit me up and said, hey, we got a camera store nearby. Would you like for me to go in there and ask them some questions? So I sent them a list of things that I was looking for in a camera, and they brought those questions to that shop. I wanted to know which camera was best for vlogging, skits, short films, some documentary work, all those type of things. And the answer I got back was the Sony FX3. My loved one hit me back and said that, hey, they have a sale going on with the lens for $39.99.99. And when they told me that, I was like, I'll buy it right now. If it comes with a lens, yes, I will buy it right now. However, when I got the link to buy it offline, it only said the body was in the box, nothing else, $39.99.99. So I made a phone call to the company just to see, hey, is this the lens and the camera, or if it's just the camera by itself? And they confirmed it was only the camera by itself. However, they told me if I bought it in store, they would add another discount on top of it, bringing the price down to $3,500, which was the same amount as the C70. And in my brain and in my soul, I told myself, if the Sony FX3 gets down to the same amount as the C70, I'll just go ahead and purchase the Sony FX3. And here was my opportunity. I bought the camera. Within 2 days, they sent me the camera. I've been out shooting scenery with this camera, and I gotta say, I'm impressed. I've been logging so many hours just on the menu settings, and there's still so much more I don't know about this camera, and I'm yearning to learn. I am pleased with my purchase. I am pleased with my purchase. I am happy I chose a Sony FX3. Now, of course, it didn't come with all of this. I bought the shotgun lens separately. I bought the 11mm separately. So hey, if you buy it, you're just getting the body itself. But I gotta say, I thought that this camera was gonna be small and dainty. This is a thick boy. This is a thick boy. It's heavy. I thought the C70 was a big boy, because the camera is really about that big. The C70 is about that big. Where my hand is the bottom, the top is up here. But this is a sturdy, thick boy. If you were to throw this at someone's head, you would probably kill them. That's how heavy this is. I was thinking it was gonna be light, real flimsy. No, man, this is a $3,500 camera, $4,000 camera, bro. This is a thick boy. And again, I'm happy with my purchase. Now, I say all of that to say this. You really have to be sure of your purchase. These cameras are not cheap. You are spending $1,000 at the minimum for a decent camera. So if you're spending multiple thousands, you need to make sure that it's the camera you want and need. Make sure you're not buying a bunch of BS. And what I mean by that is the ergonomics. Make sure there's no flimsy defects with the camera. But all of that aside, make sure it's the camera that fits right with your soul. You know that feeling in your gut, go with that. Because 10 times out of 10, it's the right feeling. My gut has never led me astray, and I think this is another hit that my gut got correct. There is no amount of ChatGPT or YouTube videos that's going to help you make the right choice. Now, they could give you a little bit of information, but again, you have to really feel that camera. You know how many times somebody convinced me to do something, and then I did it, and I realized, damn, I shouldn't have done it. That's kind of what these YouTube videos are. These YouTube videos are here to give you some information. However, if it's not your choice, it's not your choice. I can tell you, buy apples all day, eat apples all day, but then when you finally purchase an apple, it could be a bad apple and you don't like it. And you can say, hey, you told me to buy the apple, but at the end of the day, do your own research and make sure that you rock with apples. You can't let people make your decision, especially expensive decisions like buying a camera. Yes, I can tell you that I'm very happy with my purchase of the Sony FX3, but it may not be a good purchase for you, because what you need in the camera may not be what the Sony FX3 gives. For me, I needed a camera that worked well in low lights. I do short horror films. In my last short horror film that's on this channel, I realized when I was in the dark filming, there was a lot of noise around me. I needed a camera that was crisp in the dark, and I must say, the Sony FX3 was so crisp in the dark. Just yesterday, I was outside filming in the dark. It was rainy too, but I was outside in the dark, pitch black, filming. The low light settings on the Sony FX3 made it seem like there was light outside. And I'm telling you, it was pitch black. I did some nighttime shooting around the city and it was flawless victory. So yes, that's what I needed. I needed a camera that performed well in low lights because I do short horror films. And if you're doing short horror films, you're gonna have to do it in some dark rooms sometimes. But that may not be the case for you. Low light shooting may not be on the list of things that you value or find as important. So again, you have to find what camera works best with what you're going to be doing. Now, if you're on the edge of getting the C70 or the Sony FX3, I would say get either one of them. They're both good cameras. And I truly believe that Canon fixed the LED screen issue, so you may not have nothing to worry about with that. Now, if you buy it used, that's a whole different story. But I'm saying if you buy it new, it may not be an issue anymore. But that was my only thing that turned me off from the Canon. But other than that, man, it was a great camera. Yes, it's not full frame. The Sony FX3 is full frame, but you can buy lenses and kits that fix all that. So really what I'm saying is just do the research. I will say this, Sony has a plethora of lenses out there, even lenses that are not Sony, whereas Canon is more limited to what Canon has to offer. And something like that may deter a few of y'all from buying that camera. But these are things you need to know. You may even be leaning more towards the Nikon ZR. And I honestly would tell you, I would buy that camera. I was just afraid that the file size would kill my computer. Whereas with the Sony FX3, the size of the file and the quality can all be changed. I don't want to have a file the size of Texas to have the best quality. Now don't get me wrong, with the Sony FX3, the higher the quality, you're going to be burning some file. However, you do have the option to change up that quality type. You can still get some sharp footage without having a huge file size. So I just want to throw that out there just in case you're thinking about getting one of those two cameras. But with that being said, I hope that this gives you a little bit more insight of how to go about getting yourself a camera, because I too was somebody who sat on YouTube for hours upon hours a day looking through cameras, trying to see if one of these videos would give me enough information to say, hey, this is the camera I'm going to buy. Now, none of the videos did make me feel that way. However, it gave me information to make my final decision. There was a video on YouTube that showed me that the Nikon Z8 did not have a LED screen that rotated full. So things of that nature you can find out on YouTube that can help you make your choice, but don't let YouTube be the sole reason why you make your choice. At the end of the day, all these cameras are good cameras. You just need to find what works best for you.